Greetings. Welcome to another broadcast of I Have a Testimony. I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Welcome back, brothers and sisters. So today we're blessed to have with us Brother Michael T. Muhammad. He's currently serving in the capacity as the student minister of the Atlantic City Study Group. Here's a clip of our brother teaching hard. When I tell you teaching hard, couldn't take my eyes away from the clip on the subject matter of hearken unto the voice of the Lord.
Over you and I, if you permit it, God means force and power. And wherever something has more power over you than you have over yourself, and God has over you, that is a God beside God, and that's polytheism. Right. Do you know you can make other people gods besides gods too by worshiping personalities? Your woman can be a god beside God, brother. Your man can be a god besides God. But the key is to realize that the two of you united is God. Because the Holy Quran says that Allah made man and woman from what? A single what? Essence. Then what is the essence? Because we say of the deceased that they return where? To the essence. Then where is it when they die? Well, you said God is a man, and he is. But we don't worship flesh. No. We worship the eternal God. But we know the manifestation of all things comes from that which he produced in his own form, which is man and woman.
Wow. So, assalamu alaikum, dear brother.
Walaikum salam, Brother Willie.
Oh, man, thank you for granting us the opportunity for this interview, man. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for the invitation.
So, I'd like to get right down to the actual interview. So let's start off by asking you this question. Most of us come to the Nation of Islam, Islam as taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, from a Christian background or from no religious background, right? But you have one of those unique paths where you came by way of the 5% Nation. Can you share with us your journey?
Yes, sir, certainly. First, let me say, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the exalted Christ, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah in our midst today. Brother Willie, yes, I came to Islam through the 5% Nation, and I came to the 5% Nation through the voice of a relative of mine who was a student of the 5% Nation. Prior to that, I was what I thought a Christian, and I believed in a mystery God. And my cousin told me one day on a trip I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and came up for the summer in '86. And he said to me, the black man is God. And we went to war. And for about a year or two, he worked on me. We didn't have the internet back then. It was snail mail. And at a certain point, I'm still growing, I'm accepting. And we went to Brooklyn. Brownsville is where his educator, who by default became my educator also, we would go back and forth to Brooklyn, and I accepted the teachings through the 5% Nation and Fort Greene Park in Brooklyn at my first Universal Parliament. And that experience for me, that was the first time I've ever seen Black people really in that very beautiful and peaceful environment. The sisters were covered, head wraps, and the brothers were very respectful. I had never seen people speak about the knowledge the way that I did, and that influenced me greatly. And that was in 1987, 88, when I accepted the teachings of the 5%.
Beautiful, man. And how from that acceptance did you end up being in the nation?
Well, it's really the study of the lessons. I didn't know anything about the Nation of Islam except what I was told through the study of my lessons. And I didn't even get the lessons until I learned preliminary lessons that taught me how to speak the language of the 5%, which we call mathematics. So I learned my supreme mathematics, my alphabets, and my 12 jewels of Islam. And then it was, who is the original man? When I looked at that lesson, it said the students' enrollment rules of Islam. And that first lesson, when I got there, well, what is the birth record of the said Nation of Islam? And I was, Nation of Islam, what is this? So it's through the study of the lessons that I began to ask questions about the Nation of Islam. But also just being around the gods. It's not like we hadn't seen Muslims before. In North Carolina, I didn't see FOI and MGT. But coming up north, I saw Muslims, and I learned from the 5%ers, what this group was. The first time I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's voice was in 1989, and a tape was the Madison Square Garden lecture. And that was the first time I heard him and began to kind of listen to him more intently. The first time I even heard of Master Farad Muhammad that I could remember is when I received English lesson C number 1, which we call the 136. My name is W.F. Muhammad. And obviously, just by default, you want to know, you want to study. I got Message to the Black Man, How to Eat to Live, Our Savior Has Arrived. So almost simultaneously as I'm studying my lessons, I'm getting access to this knowledge of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the nation.
Wow. So that leads me to my, my second question. It's still kind of related to the first two. I recall an interview that Dr. Wesley was doing, and he ended up correcting a brother who kind of spoke of him about being a 5% in the past tense. And they said that because of his membership in the Nation of Islam. So can you explain how, though, how one can still be a registered member in the Nation of Islam and a student minister like yourself, but still be regarded as a 5%er?
Well, every registered Muslim by default potentially is a 5%er. And I want to say potentially is a 5%er by definition. The lesson comes from Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, lesson number 16, who are the 5% of the 4-part of the planet Earth. The answer, they are the poor righteous teachers who do not believe the teachings of the 10%, who are all wise and know who the true and living God is, and teach that the true and living God is the supreme being, the Son of Man, the Black man of Asia, who teaches freedom, justice, and equality to all human families of the planet Earth, otherwise known as Muslim and Muslim sons. So by default, see, this is a question and an answer, a question by Master Farad Muhammad, an answer by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in a body of lessons called Muslim lessons. So by registration into the Nation of Islam, you potentially are a 5%er, but or you are of the 5%. But being of the 5% is a frame of mind. It's now the person that said that about Wesley is speaking specifically about a group of people who have identified themselves as 5%ers via either what they may call the Nation of Gods and Earths or the 5% Nation of Islam. Now that person may have been saying to Wesley, hey, you're no longer a part of us because you joined the nation, but that's his misunderstanding and immaturity in his understanding of what the real 5% are, because they're also Muslim and Muslim sons. They're civilized people, also Muslim and Muslim sons. And what is the meaning of civilization? One having knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, and refinement, and is not savage. And a savage is a person that has lost the knowledge of themselves and is living a life of a beast. So there's a criteria to being a 5% or being of the 5% of this part of the planet Earth, or really all over the world. You know, you can be in the Nation of Islam and be an 85%er or a 10%er and 5%er, because these are states of being, these are frame of minds, in my opinion.
Beautiful, man. And while we're talking about just pretty much the first couple of questions, still all about the lessons. And so I'll ask you this, you know, can you share how significant the lessons are to the development of a believer and why we should study them?
Well, first, because these lessons come from the mind of God in the person of Master Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, we're taught in our lessons that the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father, civilization, God of the universe. We're also taught in our lessons, lesson number 1, Muslim lesson number 2, that Allah is the original people, the supreme being, or the black man of Asia. These lessons have in them the mind of Master Farad Muhammad and the mind of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Master Farad Muhammad, who we know to be God, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who we know to be the exalted Christ and then some. It's important for us to study these lessons because this is our assignment first. Lesson number 1. And when you open the book, at one time it wasn't really given out in book form, but we have what we call instructions to the laborers. And in this book are instructions, and an instruction is an order, or an instruction can be identified as directions or procedures or a manner in which you are to conduct or do something. And in this book are instructions and orders on how we should live. It teaches us our heavenly home. It teaches us who our enemy is. It teaches us all that we need to know in order to live. And I heard the minister say this about these beautiful lessons, that if you learn your lessons verbatim, that you'll have a better understanding of the Holy Quran in English than the Arabs have in Arabic. So what is it about the way that the God compiled these lessons? The minister said to us at one time, he said, you haven't even scratched the surface of these lessons. The enemy confiscated these lessons, as I understand, in the history in the 40s. And they used these lessons to discover, by God's permission, things that allowed them to advance their civilization. But we look at this as if it is a pastime when these lessons take us into the future. So it's important for every registered member to study their lessons, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Allah is going to question us on these lessons, all lessons and forms. And I would want to be prepared to answer any questions that I can, you know, from the God. But I would say on this last point, Brother Willie, is that as we study these lessons, in order to truly get from the lesson what we need spiritually, we have to have a healthy respect and love for Master Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because there are keys in this lessons, and you can never unlock the lessons if you don't have respect for the men. They won't allow you to get access. And that's why I think it's important, brother.
Oh man, beautiful. Whew, we've only in the first half of this interview, man, and you shared a lot that we can go back and really learn from and be inspired by. So, but we're going to pause to hear from our sponsors. But for those who are watching, we'll be right back with our brother Michael T. Muhammad to hear more of his testimony. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
And we're back, brothers and sisters, to hear more of this dynamic interview with our brother Michael T. Muhammad, who is a student minister of that city, Atlantic City, New Jersey, right? And we left off, our brother was very profound. I think this is going to be a clip that we're going to use to inspire many of us to get back into the lessons. He's been talking about his history and how he came into the Nation of Islam. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the history of Atlantic City and your labor there. But first, we'll ask this question. Can you talk about briefly, your history in the ministry? Because I know you talked about you started in Trenton, or you mentioned Trenton. I don't know if you started there as a student minister, and now you're in Atlantic City. Can you talk about that?
I came into the Nation of Islam to Mosque number 7 in Harlem by way of Trenton, New Jersey, where I would go and live during the summer breaks and winter breaks while I was in college as a student at Cheney University. My father was in the Nation of Islam and in Trenton, New Jersey, and also back and forth between Mosque number 12 in Philadelphia. So naturally, my family, all of my father's family is in Trenton, New Jersey, and the surrounding areas. So during the summer breaks, the winter breaks, I would go to Trenton, and as a 5%er, I interacted with the Nation of Islam. So as I wrote my letter at some point in 92, and the group there in Trenton was shut down, a friend of mine and brother who was in Trenton invited me to come to Mosque number 7 6 or 7 months later. And I wanted to be in Brooklyn because I had learned of Brother Abdul Hafiz, formerly Brother Kevin, and I had learned that he was a 5%er. And, I was familiar with Brooklyn because that's where, I would go to be with the gods. And so I wanted to be in Brooklyn. And I met Brother Hafiz and a few other of the brothers. And he pulled one of the brother that invited me, Brother Forrest. He said, "Brother, you should go uptown." And I went uptown and eventually recited and got my X. So I came into the nation by way of Muhammad Mosque number 7 and came into the ministry class through Brother Conrad, formerly Conrad Muhammad. It was recommended to him by a brother who was the first officer named Brother Leon, who had heard me speaking one day. And I guess he talked to Brother Conrad, and unbeknownst to me, I was having a conversation with him, and Brother Conrad invited me into the ministry class to help as one of the assistants there in Mosque number 7. So, coming up, and I never looked at being in the ministry. I wanted to be on the E-team. I didn't even know what an E-team was until I was told. I just asked, what do these brothers do? I want to do what they do because I wanted to protect the minister. I wanted to give my life, even physically, if I have to protect him. But I wasn't interested in the ministry at all. I didn't even know that I could speak in that regard. But I was invited by Brother Conrad, and that's where the early training in the ministry happened for me and others under a beautiful brother, Brother Hawk, taught us, things about the ministry class.
Beautiful, man. So we were talking about, that history. I came across this information while preparing for this interview. I came across several pictures of a brother, and I think on this picture, for those who are watching, he's the brother to the right of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Woodrow X. So can you tell us what you know about him and his significance to the Atlantic City?
Well, he was one of the brothers that worked very close with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as in the audiovisual area. But being from Atlantic City, he's one of the brothers that helped establish Muhammad Mosque number 10 in Atlantic City. I believe it was in the early 50s. And Brother Woodrow, also, from what I understand, was the minister in Trenton at one time. But his history is very rich. And even prior to his passing, may Allah be pleased with him, he held on to a very large archive of videos, tapes of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But Brother Woodrow was one of those pioneers. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him. He had transitioned, returned to Allah before I had the opportunity to meet him. But I've heard much about him through other believers who have met him and have known him.
Wow. Thank you, my brother. And just to even to have those images of our brother is important. And I always try to encourage people in their cities, man, to really to get the history of those who have helped lay the foundation upon which we stand. And since we're talking about Atlantic City in our talks, you mentioned to me how the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared with you some words about Atlantic City, and also, his love for the city, some of the reasons.
Yes, sir. Well, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has come to Atlantic City on 2 occasions to speak. And this was, of course, hosted by the Muslims there who helped reestablish Mosque Number 10 under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the early rebuilding. And one of those brothers, Brother Willie, is Student Minister Robert Muhammad in Muhammad Mosque Number 35. He was the minister at that time. And those believers with him helped kind of reestablish that at that time. And I've learned a lot about what the minister said about Atlantic City just by talking with Brother Robert, because he was a young minister and his student ministers in his 20s, and the minister was in and out of the city. But I heard the minister say one time that Atlantic City was very dear to him because that's the place where his mother came and lived and worked when she first came from the West Indies. And the minister would also come down because this place was also very near and dear to Brother Malcolm X, who was frequent in Atlantic City. And a lot of this is oral culture, I would say, oral among the community of Muslims there. But Malcolm, from what we understand, would come frequently. They would have ministers' meetings in Atlantic City, and the minister would obviously be there for those ministers' meetings. And also Atlantic City, other than Boston, was one of the first mosques to actually own its property. So it's a lot of valuable history in Atlantic City. It sits on an island. It used to be kind of like a health and wellness resort in the 19th century. So, it's a lot of beautiful history there. But it is a very tough place. And I spoke with the minister one day. We were blessed to see him and speak with him. And when I told him that I was in Atlantic City, because he was aware that I was no longer in Trenton, because I resigned from that post for multiple reasons, of course. But in talking with the minister, when I did see him again, I told him I was in Atlantic City, and he just smiled and lit up. And he said, "Son, I want you to get that city up." And I gave him my word, and my word is bond. I said it without hesitation. Word is bond, Brother Minister. And I've been on the job ever since. But I was invited into the Delaware Valley region by our beloved student minister Rodney Muhammad, because I was in Phoenix, Arizona for a little while, working. And, as I was making my way back to the East Coast, student minister Rodney had reached out to me and asked me would I come and help. And I needed to get some things in order. But our beloved student minister who was here, see, Atlantic City was not a city that he had and I had discussed, but the student minister that was here, our beloved brother, student minister James Muhammad, may Allah be forever pleased with him. He was the student minister here at that time, and he returned to Allah. And when he returned to Allah, Minister Rodney asked me would I transition to Atlantic City. And that's how it ended up here, beloved. Prior to that, I hadn't been in Atlantic City since the 90s. And I think I was with Poor Righteous Teachers when that happened. Other than that, I knew nothing about Atlantic City or not one person in the city.
Wow. And we'll make a slight transition because talking about something else you're involved in right now, because you're currently working on your dissertation. That's for your
Yes, sir.
doctoral degree. Can you talk about what area you're working to get your degree in, and any difficulties you have faced and any encouragement you have received from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?
Well, first, beloved, yes, my at this dissertation phase, it's been a little over 3 years now, and but going to seminary, because I'm my study in seminary is Bible exposition. So I've always had, which is the study of the interpretation of Scripture. So I've always had this passion for Scripture ever since I was 12 years old. And before I decided to go to seminary, I knew I had to ask the minister. And this was while I was still the student minister in Trenton. And I asked the minister if I could go, and called the palace, and he said, yes, you can go. And he said, it will help you greatly in your ministry, as long as you hold on to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that's all I needed, because as I talked to other student ministers and peers and colleagues in the ministry, they would look at me, cemetery, why you want to go to a cemetery? But, I love the Scripture, and there's so much in the Scripture that if we teach it right, we can really help and save our people. And some of the difficulties and challenges is that, I'm a full-time father, husband. I work full-time job. I am also student minister building up a city, into a mosque. And it's nonstop. And this level of your academic career, so to speak, it's a research degree. So it's constant reading and constant writing, and you constantly refining and modifying. And when I went to seminary, maybe about 15 years ago, and I had to withdraw because it was too intense, and I was in a Master of Divinity program. And I actually called Brother Wesley, and I sat outside the school, and I told Brother Wesley, I said, man, I don't think I can do it. And I broke down and I cried. And my big brother, I said little brother, but my brother, he said to me, he said, brother, sometimes you got to take one step back to take 2 steps forward. And I thanked him. And because he was still, I think he had just finished his dissertation and finished his schooling. And I walked out of that school, New Brunswick Theological Seminary in New Brunswick at Rutgers. I walked out of that school with tears in my eyes, and I said, I'm going to go back and do it again. And so, Brother Willie, I'm just about done. So
praise be to Allah. Well, man, we appreciate that you will continue to pursue that, and we pray and wish for your success in getting it done, because as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, in the end, it's going to help you and it's going to help our nation. So we're coming up on our next break. And when we come back, brothers and sisters, our brother has authored several books, and we're going to get the opportunity to provide him the opportunity to give us a brief little, understanding and explanation on what was the objective of each of those books. So we'll be right back with more of this dynamic interview, which I'm enjoying with our brother Michael T. Muhammad.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App, NNV News.
AsiaticMinds.com, the curriculum of study from the University of God's Mind. Education that enhances the quality of learning through a virtual school system. The science of mathematics, communication, and deductive reasoning. Our children are the future. Invest in your destiny. To enroll now, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
Muhammad's economic blueprint, the collective power of our dollars to build a future for ourselves. With 5 cents a day, 35 cents a week, $1.40 a month, and $18.20 a year multiplied by 16 million wage earners would give us $291 million in 1 year. Everyone can give 35 cents a week as an investment in our future. Donate now and see what our pennies, nickels, and dimes can accomplish. Visit economicblueprint.org.
And we're back. And as I said, we're going to have our brother talk about the books that he has authored. And I'll just read off the name of it, and then you can just, you can tell us. I don't know if you probably can see it on the screen, but the first one is The Guide and the Guidance, the Honorable Minister, the Holy Quran and the Bible as taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So what can the reader expect and gain from that book?
That book is a reference guide. It is a compilation of words from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, on the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation, from Al-Fatiha to Al-Nas. You are going to get verse by verse words from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and from the minister on those specific scriptures. It's a good reference guide to have, reference material, so that as you go through the Bible, as you go through the Holy Quran, you don't have to guess what it means. It says none knows its interpretation but Allah, save Allah. And we know that Allah gave it to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the minister received it from the wheel. So it's a good reference guide to have, biblical and Quranic reference guide.
Your second book is Thus Saith the Lord, Beyond Biblical Exegesis, Revelation by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the revised edition.
That is an old book cover. That's not the revised version, but the revised version of that is only the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's a biblical reference guide from Genesis to Revelation.
Okay. And the next one is Demystifying the Vision Experience of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which you also told me that that's in Spanish as well.
Right. That Spanish version, there, our beloved brother Abel, put that together for me and his team, and they worked on that for us. But Demystifying the Vision Experience is a third publication that came out of the first publication, which was called Who Do You Say I Am? The Betrayal and Crucifixion of Louis Farrakhan. But Demystifying the Vision Experience, it goes into not just the fact that the minister had the experience, but how I believe he had the experience, how he had it, not the fact that he just had it, but how he had it. And there's some oral testimony in there from others with regards to the minister's experience. So we kind of go through the fact that his experience is real, a real experience, and how it happened.
And since we're talking about that experience, which is so significant, especially to an aspect of our theology, you know, what advice or guidance would you give to someone who may not fully understand the significance of that experience, whether they are in the Nation of Islam or outside of the Nation of Islam?
That I have never had a conversation with the minister about how he had his experience. This is my testimony of it. And I researched and pulled it together because how he has it, I believe, through my research, it makes it real, right? My dissertation, and I'm going to get back to your question, is titled Critical Examination of Dreams and Visions and the Authority of the Holy Spirit on Biblical Prophecy. So Paul in 2 Corinthians 12 talks about an experience he had when he was taken up into the third heavens. Paul is one who was a disciple of, he wasn't one of the 12 disciples, but he was one who was like a disciple of Jesus, but he had never seen Jesus except in a vision on Straight Street, right? Paul was taken up into what he called the third heavens. He said, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. But he was taken up in that experience. He said, but God knows. And then he says it again, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know, but God knows. So some people say, well, Master Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, don't worry about dreams. They don't believe dreams, right? But it was the dream or vision of a 6-year-old who saw himself pushing the Rockefellers, the Fords, the DuPonts, the wicked of this world into the lake of fire. So it's important that we study the minister's experience because it's his experience that is proof and evidence and proof that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke to him on the wheel. The wheel is proof that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive. And that's a conversation that our beloved brother Ilya Rashad can really, really go into. That's evidence. That's proof the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive. But the minister's experience is found throughout scripture through these different types of people that in the past that represent what we antitypically today are experiencing through that man. And each one of us have received something from his experience on the wheel where he received that wisdom in the form of study guides, in the form of up-to-date modern revelation that he's able to take the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's like light on top of light. So what he got from, if we didn't get anything from his experience, we could say his experience ain't real. And if we haven't got anything from his experience, it's because we don't believe it. We can't even say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive and discredit the minister's experience, because it's through him that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made himself known. And it's through him that he testified of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being physically alive. I didn't know he was alive until the minister taught me. The minister taught me how to love the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through his example. I don't have a relation. I've never seen the man before in my life, but I see the man that he raised up for us, who taught me how to love him. It's like a mother who has a father it's like children that have a father that's outside of the house. He's working, he's out, he's doing things, he's never home. But the mother's at home and she's teaching you that all that we have is because of him. So when daddy comes home, you embrace him, you love him, you know he's real, you know he's alive, but you haven't seen him. You see, it's a subject that's very passionate to me. And like the minister said, you have to prove it to yourself. That Master Farad Muhammad is God. You have to prove it to yourself that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is alive. You have to prove it to yourself that the minister is the Messiah. And my work, particularly with that book, is me proving it to myself that his experience is real, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is alive, that Master Farad Muhammad is God. And my faith is further concretized, solidified, through my study of wanting to bear witness to those three men that have saved my life.
Beautiful. And for those who are watching this interview, make sure you go online, you all, to support those and get those books, so you can also, as all of us, can strengthen our faith. And we have 5 more minutes before our next break, but I want to get this question in, Brother Michael. Would like to ask you about your relationship with our brother Jabril Muhammad. Can you share with us how you have worked with him and any lessons you have learned from him?
Well, let me say, I've never worked with Brother Jabril in that way. In the early phases of the writing of Closing the Gap, you know, I'm very close to one of the brothers that worked with Brother Jabril on that, and some of the brothers, Brother Marlon, Brother Aaron, who used to be the captain in Newark, Captain Richard, and others. We were all kind of around one another, but you know, I didn't work on the Gap book or anything. My relationship with Brother Jabril started out with just me writing him, and it's probably similar to the relationship of most student ministers in the Nation of Islam. While I was in Trenton, I had been going through an extremely difficult time, and Brother Jabril called me out to Arizona, and that was the first time I had a chance to meet him in person at his home and sit and talk with him. And that correspondence continued, but it took time for him to even really speak to me directly. He's not the kind of person that you're just going to run up on. My communication with Brother Jabril started out communicating through Dr. Patina, his wife. And then eventually he invited me out, etc. And then he began to give me lessons and nuggets. I would write my lectures out. I would send my lectures to him. He would correct me on things. He would give me guidance on how to see the hypocrite and how to better serve and help the believers. And he said to me one day, he said, brother, your job as a minister is to help the believers see the minister better. That's our job, is to help the believers see Farrakhan, see him better, not me, but to see him better. So I've learned a lot from Brother Jabril. I've asked him questions about the lessons. English lesson number C1, I remember asking him about that. And we were taught as 5%ers that it was Master Farad Muhammad talking to a judge. It was Master Farad Muhammad talking to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Brother Jabril said no. He said you can say that he was talking or speaking to himself. So little nuggets like that, because I wanted to know about the lessons. Was Father Civilization ever in the lessons? And Brother Jabril said yes. I said, who took it out? He said the hypocrites. So, you know, it's little things like that, you know. But I thank Allah for our beloved brother and his wife, Dr. Patina. I love them. And when I was in Arizona, when I did the first print of Who Do You Say I Am, which eventually came Demystifying the Vision Experience, I had coffee with Brother Jabril, and he questioned me on that book. And him questioning me on that book caused me to go back and do a second version of it, and then eventually this version of it, which still is not perfect, you know. My understanding has changed since I've written Demystifying the Vision Experience. And also the great brother Abdul Wahid, who I love tremendously. I spent a lot of time with Brother Wahid, who really, really helped me to understand my role as a student minister, even at that time when I was not over a city.
Beautiful, man. And we're coming up on our last break, my brother. And when we come back, for those who are watching, make sure you continue to share this. Make sure you invite other people to watch it. We're going to hear more from our brother Michael T. Muhammad. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
AsiaticMinds.com, the curriculum of study from the University of God's Mind. Education that enhances the quality of learning through a virtual school system. The science of mathematics, communication, and deductive reasoning. Our children are the future. Invest in your destiny. To enroll now, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. the movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
We're back, family. So you've heard our brother talk about how he came into the Nation of Islam. You've heard him talk about his effort to pursue his doctoral degree. You've heard him talk about his authorship with the books and the work that he's doing there in Atlantic City, and also his relationship, with Brother Jabril Muhammad. But also, our brother is also a skilled lyricist. When I talk about a skilled lyricist, I'm talking about a hip hop lyricist. So can you talk with us about your history in the music world, my brother, and what you hope to accomplish with your music, and even where people can go and hear your music?
Wow. Brother Willie, my experience with hip hop has been kind of love and hate. It is a world that can be a god to you. I had been involved in the music business, since the 80s. I would say 87, 88, 89, around that time. And my first exposure on a professional level was through a good brother that my cousin introduced me to and was managed by, named Mel Kwan, Divine Mel Kwan Allah, who at that time was managing two of the founding members of the Wu-Tang Clan, the Jizza and the RZA. And so I spent a lot of time in Brooklyn with the RZA, Hanif, my cousin, who gave me knowledge, and Mel Kwan and Shabazz, Mel Kwan and Shabazz. And, coming up from the South, they really helped me grow and learn. And like even being, with the brothers, the Jizza told me, as far as my writing is concerned, little nuggets, like when you write, think in pictures, think about the video and things like that. I watched and I observed them. And then, but I loved Islam. See, we were all 5%ers, but I loved the Nation of Islam, and I loved the minister, although at that time I was not a registered member. But Allah saw fit for me to become a member. So when I came to the mosque and met Brother Hafiz, we had already had music out. So I brought some vinyl and I brought some cassettes because, CDs were just coming out. You didn't have the internet like you do today. So I couldn't say, Google me or whatever. But we had released a single, me and some friends of mine that I went to college with. And that just happens to be a, kind of like an underground hip hop classic called No More 9 to 5 in the Last Days of Wax. We were always thinking independence. I was listening to the minister, tapes from the minister at the Jack the Rapper. So all of that's going into my head. So I'm thinking about independence while my friends have record deals. Poor Righteous Teachers, RZA, Jizza, they have record deals. I'm always thinking about independence. I was blessed enough after releasing that, even before releasing that, to be introduced to Guru from Gangstar. And it was Guru that, through a friend of mine who was a DJ, who was his tour DJ for the Jazzmatazz projects in absence of Premier. His name is Sean Ski, and Ski introduced me, and it was Guru that helped us with the mastering of that particular record by introducing us to the world-renowned master and premier master and engineer Tony Dorsey. So I've developed a relationship with Guru, and Ski and I began working with the great Donald Byrd, the great jazz musician and trumpeter. And Dr. Byrd wanted to form the New Blackbirds. And he wanted to bring hip hop to jazz like Guru kind of brought jazz to hip hop. And it was an experiment. You know, he's a fusionist, jazz fusionist, and it was an experiment, but it wasn't widely accepted. We toured, you know, domestically. We did a lot of shows, a lot of radio. We did a lot of stuff in New York, and we did BET. So while I was in the mosque in number 7 as a young brother, people would turn on, I'd be right on BET on Jazz Central with Ramsey Lewis and Donald Byrd, the New Blackbirds. And I would walk in the mosque and people were like, did I just see you on TV? And I was just so humble. I was like, nah, that wasn't me. But it was a tug of war for me, because at that time, Guru would always tell me he had a situation for us set up on payday. You know, he was 10 years my senior, beautiful brother. But, you know, the ebb and flow of music, the ebb and flow of the industry, you know, it did not work out. And I began to kind of move away from music in that regard and focus more on my spiritual, mental, and moral development. And then when I continued to make music. I continued to, you know, focus on my engineering and my production skills. I produced my own music. Maybe 2015, I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and focus on. Now I'm no longer the minister in Trenton, and naturally I went back to what I love, which was music. And I wanted to do something and do it, because at the end of the day, there's no doubt in my mind, had I not come this way in the Nation of Islam, I would have reached the pinnacle of success, in my humble opinion, like many of my peers. But it just was not for me. I did not desire it. And as much as I desired to be with the minister, desired to help him, desired to focus on my own spiritual, mental, and moral development. And it was too much of a sacrifice, because at that time I had a family, a growing family, and you know, a young family. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice my family like many of my friends have. And you know, I remember seeing the RZA one day, and he was just telling me how proud he was of me. And I said, I'm proud of you. And we had this heart-to-heart conversation just about some of what he's experienced in that world, not being able to, his children and children's mothers and things like that. And I realized that, I made the right decision. I've seen a lot of people in this industry sacrifice, and the minister really talked about that in the Swan Song, about entertainers, musicians who sacrificed so much of their spiritual, mental, and moral foundation for money, and you lose your soul in the process. And I wasn't willing to do that. But in 2015, I decided to really start focusing on production again. And immediately I began working on other projects, doing production, and then decided to put my own project out, which is Invisible Freedom. And we released that in 2017. Now, when I finished the album, that's when I got the call from Brother Rodney to come and help in Atlantic City. Now here's that crossroad again.
Wow.
What are you going to do? Because now I'm getting radio play. I'm being asked to perform. I'm doing radio shows, and at that time it's like, okay, let me step back. And to this day, I've had, some artists reach out to me, some prominent artists reach out to me to do things, or at least ask me what's going on with the music. And, I would always tell them, like I am now, especially now with school, I just don't have time. I haven't done much of anything since I've been focusing on this PhD.
Wow.
And but it's a love-hate relationship. My wife just mentioned to me not too long ago, she said, when are you going to make some music? So it has a place for me, but I'm at a space now where I can make it if I want to. I don't have to if I don't want to. I don't need it to live. I don't need it to eat. I do it because I love it.
Yes, sir.
And that's what me and my peers, my friends that make music with me, that's where we are.
Yes, sir. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, man. And a lot of the hip hop, or people will say like the hip hop royalty, you rub elbows with. So we're coming down to our last two questions before, really one more before we go close out. And I want to ask you about a brother. You actually mentioned him during the early part of the interview. Our brother Abdul Hafiz Muhammad. May Allah be pleased with him, man.
Yes,
I try to ask everybody from the East Coast who I've had the opportunity to interview, brother Ronald from Rochester, brother Kenneth from Rochester, and now you. Are there any memories or fondest moments with our brother that you can share?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Coming up in Mosque number 7, brother Hafiz, I mean, we were all young. He's older, of course, but we were all really young. And coming up in Mosque number 7, it was an environment of correction. And, man, you see brother Hafiz, he gave you that big smile and that big bear hug, man. That's what I remember. That's those fondest memories of being with him, it's that bear hug, man. But what I loved about brother Hafiz, he was the God, to me, he was the God. He was the Muslim God, and he always had words of wisdom. When I was the minister in Trenton, brother Hafiz would just call me. We would talk. And I remember one time he was in DC and the minister was meeting with his ministers, and brother Hafiz called me and he said, "Where are you?" Now I was on the street corner selling final calls. He said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm out here soldiering." And he said, "You not here with the minister?" And I told him no, and I told him why. And he said to me, he said, "Brother, wherever the minister is, you know how we do. You from New York, you need to be here." And it's those little nuggets, man. Every time I saw brother Hafiz, he was dropping a jewel on me. He was giving me wisdom, after he gave me that beautiful bear hug, But yeah, he was one of the first student ministers that I've ever met. The first minister that I ever met was Dr. Aline. And brother Hafiz, I think, was the third student minister that I met. And like I said to you before, brother Willie, I wanted to be in Brooklyn because I had learned that he came out of the 5%.
Man, well, brother, we thank you for the time that you have shared with us and the rich history that you have shared.
Let me mention this to you.
Yeah.
Do you remember? It had to be 2001, 2002. The seminary study that we engaged with brother Jabril.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
I remember that. When we talked the other day, you brought to mind those two questions, and I remember the letter that I wrote to him. And I think I have a copy of it. I have to go dig it up and find it, man.
Yeah, we were putting together that online seminary, and we asked brother Jabril if he would facilitate and teach us.
Mm-hmm.
Me, you, Wesley, Captain Richard, New York, brother Aaron, brother Marlon. It was a few others, man. And that was a long time ago. And just for him to say he would do it, brother, is something that I believe is very special, because I heard the minister say in New York in the 90s that he wanted to create for us to have a seminary where he wanted his ministers to study hermeneutics and eschatology and soteriology and other things about religion, and I wanted to mention that, brother, because that's a very rare and beautiful moment. And I think we probably went through maybe 2 questions, and then our beloved brother fell ill.
Yeah, man. And brother Jabril has played so much, has such a great impact on my life, man. So
yeah, me too.
I'm gonna see if I can go back and find some of the letters and some of the emails that he sent with me, and I'll share them with you as well, man. But we
likewise, brother, because I have
Oh, I know, man, what you were doing. So we thank you, my brother, for taking
Thank
the time
you,
out
Brother
to
Minister.
give us this interview. And it's filled with so much, man, so much. So we thank you. May Allah continue to bless you and the believers
Allah
there
bless
in the
you.
city of Atlantic City, man. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother.
Yes, sir. And for those who are watching, we thank you all for tuning in, and we'll briefly run through our closing announcements. As always, we're here in the city of New Orleans working to try to pay off or put to rest our mortgage. So this is a way that you can help. You can buy Cash App, GoFundMe, or PayPal. We would greatly appreciate it. In addition to that, we can go to this next one. If there's anybody that you want some us to say a prayer on their behalf, please let us know, and we'll definitely say a prayer. So please submit their names, and we will definitely do it. And other people have been submitting their names of their loved ones, and we have been submitting their prayers and everything as well. And then as we keep going, we see we have some of the books. There's another book that I just came out with, and I have to give it to the producer so we can start showing it. It's dealing with conflict resolution. And inshallah, I'm in the process. I'll share this with you all, that there's one that I'm working on right now that you should be having soon, as you'll be able to access soon as well. So go to our website, mosque46.org, so you can check it out. And our last thing, so as we get ready for this, we thank our brother Michael T. Muhammad. Make sure you support him. Make sure you check out his music. Salute to our brother behind the boards, Brother Musai. This is your brother Willie Muhammad, signing off with I Have a Testimony. Peace.
Go home and study. See, many of you don't study your religion. And you think you're going to attain something without study. But if you believe in something, you need to study it so you can become proficient in what you do. Now watch this. God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us. He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.